Hello everybody, welcome to Monday evening in the Pathlight Thrive Hive. If you're joining us live, that is. If you're watching it later on my YouTube channel or whatever, it might be any night of the week, so welcome anyway. So tonight we have got Liz Bailey joining us. She is a psychotherapist and a bereavement and trauma expert, and she's going to be talking to us all about bereavement this evening and grief and how psychotherapy can help us with that, how we can manage grief, and maybe we'll get on to talking around complex grief around the pandemic as well, because I know a lot of people have lost people over the last few months and have been unable to attend a funeral, or the funeral's been cut back, so that's difficult, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk about that later on. So first of all, I'm going to do my usual gubbins of put some things up on the screen to encourage you to do some stuff for me. Yeah, so first of all, if you would very happily share this link, the group link, with your friends and your network and your colleagues or whoever you want to share it with, the more the merrier in the hive. And also, if you've got some particular Facebook friends, for example, who you think would benefit from what goes on here, you can just invite them in directly. Thank you very much for growing the community. And if you're enjoying our little community, not so little anymore, it's growing quite quickly now, then you can you can help to make it sustainable by going to buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive. And there's two ways you can support Pathlight Thrive Hive. One is by becoming a member, subscribing for £7 a month. You get some discounts off mental health first aid courses. You also get a warm glow from knowing that you're supporting me every month, and priority booking for coaching and other bits and bobs as well. So you can do that for £7 a month, or if you just want to drop me £3, buy me a virtual coffee anytime you like, such as after tonight's session, for example. If you enjoy it, you get something out of it, you can do that there, buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive. Thank you to everyone who has done so already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And finally, if you feel like you need some support yourself at the moment around the pandemic or relationships or personal development stuff, whatever it is, you can have a chat with me. We can arrange a free 15-minute kind of well-being or check-in kind of chat, either on the phone or Zoom or however you want to do it, Skype, and just see if we feel we can work together. So just drop me an email, info@pathlight.org.uk, or you can contact me through Facebook on Messenger or whatever else you want to do to arrange that, if that would be useful to you. And finally, if you have any questions or comments as we go through tonight's chat with Liz, then feel free just to pop them in the comments underneath the live video stream. And if you want us to know who you are, you'll need to either go to that link there to give StreamYard your permission to share your name and your little photograph. If you don't want to do that, you can remain anonymous to us, or you can just type your name before your comment so we know who it is that's sending it through. Thank you very much for your engagement. So without further ado, we will bring in Liz Bailey. So welcome to the Thrive Hive, Liz.
Thank you, Paul.
And thank you very much for being here. It's great that you're a relatively new member of the Hive, but you're sharing some useful information and knowledge and experience with us tonight.
Yes, so thank you again very much indeed, being such a new member and being invited to speak and asking about sharing some of my timeline, if you like. Gosh, the older you become, the longer the timeline goes back. So we've got quite a bit we could be talking about. Yeah. So first of all, I suppose the realization that I was at the effect of other people's behavior was both frightening and also very exciting. Because I thought, I maybe could be the cause of this. So that was really great. So like all of us, we've been programmed up to the age of about 7 years old, how we should behave, how we should think, how we should what we should believe in, how to behave, all those things gets programmed into us. And it has happened to all of us by our prime carers, be our parents or caregivers or whoever's looking after us, and also teachers and our peer group as well. So it's kind of like put into us that this is the way it should be. So fortunately, I did go through, like everyone, a lot of conditioning, how to do this and how to do that, and what I should and shouldn't do, what I ought to do and ought not to do. But I had that little part of me that was untouchable, which was full of adventure and full of risks. And I wouldn't say exactly a rebellious child, but I was hungry to know why. And I can remember my mother saying to me when I was constantly saying, but why? But why? But why? And she used to say in the end, poor soul, so frustrated, why's got a long tail. And I thought, if ever I have a child of my own and he or she asks me questions, I'm never going to say, because why's got a long tail. But believe you me, there's been times when I wish I had. But questions, you know, are just so wonderful. So at 7 years old, this is coming from an episodic memory because it's all fragmented. At 7 years old, my father died. And I knew he wasn't very well, but this particular evening, I could hear him coughing and a troubled, struggling type of cough. And then I heard the voices of my mother and other members of the family had arrived late at night or early in the morning. I heard the voice of our local doctor, our GP, because we always had the same doctor all those years ago. And then it went quiet. And then my auntie came into my room, and her words to me were, now you've got to be a very brave and strong little girl. Daddy's gone to live with Jesus. So I thought, I think I remember thinking anyway, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't just go and leave. So that was the message, strong and brave. So when my auntie went downstairs, I tiptoed out of my room along the landing to my parents' room where my father was, and I opened the door and I saw him dead in the bed. Now, for me, that was the truth. He hadn't just gone to live with Jesus, he died. So children are very resilient. They like to be told the truth. But of course, going back to that message, what did that message tell me? That message told me to be strong and not show my feelings. And you know, it was never spoken about. My father was never spoken about by my mother until a further 43 years later when she was about to die.
Wow.
And I thought, gosh, what pain to hold in all those years. But going back to this be strong, I don't know if anyone has done any TA, but we have the transactional analysis, not territorial army, transactional analysis. And they suggest we have 5 drivers. And it's be strong, which was given to me, be perfect, try harder, hurry up, and people pleaser. Now, all these drivers have an upside and a downside. Now, a be strong is hide emotions, but you know what? I'm great in a crisis. The be perfect, you're never perfect. You're never perfect. But, however, the outside is you pay a lot of attention to detail. The try harder, you hear it with people's language. I'll try and do this. I'll try and do that. And you know, the odds are they're never going to do it, but they keep trying. And the outside of that is they're very tenacious. You know, they'll go at it and keep at it. And the hurry up, well, they're very liable to make errors and make mistakes. But actually, they hurry up, they get things done really, really quickly. And of course, the good old people pleasers, which most of the therapists are, we just like to be nice and be nice to people, go into caring, nursing, that sort of profession. You know, they're everyone's friend, but they very often leave themselves out of the equation.
So lacking boundaries, lacking self-care.
Exactly. You know, it's pleasing everybody else, but never themselves. So because then going back to my story again, because it was never spoken about, as a little girl, I felt ashamed that my father was no longer part of the family. And because I was lied to about it, I was taught to lie about it. So when I met new friends, or they came to the house, as they do, come back for tea, oh, where's your father? Oh, he works away from home. Because I thought it was wrong. If something's not spoken about, and, you know, it must be wrong. Which is such a horrible weight to carry. I hope they don't ask about my father. What can I say? Oh, he's working away. Well, they must have cottoned on in the end that he was always working away. But I felt ashamed to say he had died because no one would talk about it. So anyway, years and years and years and years and years and years went on. And when I started my psychotherapy training of 4 long, long years, I had to get a placement. And I knew immediately that mine was going to be bereavement. You just get drawn to what you most need. And it's like people say, the dog you get is the dog you most need. And if you get a naughty, disobedient dog, well, it's there to learn. So I knew right away. So I went along, applied to the traumatic loss and bereavement in services in Devon. And we went through quite strict sort of interviews and had to fill out interests and even about our religions. And I've not been sort of tied to any religion. However, I was always really taken with the Buddhist principles. And of course, I put that down. So they kept coming back to me with this interview, and the question they were really pondering about, and they thought, we've got to really ask this question. And the question was, we noticed you were Buddhist. Is that going to be a problem for you? I said, no. Is it going to be a problem for you? So whether they thought it was going to be something that I wouldn't be, you know, compassionate about, you know, with the dying. You know, I had to go through their scripts, you know. I said no. So we said, we'll see what happens. So that was a couple of years, but only one day a week going for the training, and then we had to this role play, and then we were set free on to clients. And gosh, that was a huge responsibility, you know, to be put out there. And of course it was traumatic. So lo and behold, the first client I had was a young family, a young mother with a little girl who was probably about 6, not quite 7. And the father had hung himself. So I thought, oh, my goodness me, you know. So we spoke. I first of all spoke with the mother, and I said, you know, what does your daughter know? It's important that she knows something, which that's very delicate to say something like that, because again, the blame comes in. Was it something I did that made him do that? And much to my surprise, a couple of weeks, I saw her each week, and we sort of built a relationship up. She said, oh, I've got another boyfriend now. I said, gosh, seemed a bit quick, but again, not to look shocked about it. But I thought, this is something more I haven't found out here. And the little girl was all bouncy and bouncy on the surface, but again, she probably had to cover up some feelings. But we started this little box for her to keep special things in for her father. And it turned out that actually the father was really quite violent towards his wife, her mother. And this has been going on for a long, long time. And this new boyfriend wasn't so new. But actually, I met him the next time, and he was quite solid and quite nice. And I think because they included her in the process, that helped her tremendously. They allowed her, even though he was a violent man, they allowed her to do what she needed to do and have a little box of little photo or any little thing that meant something to her. But there wasn't a great deal in there. So they kind of did a lot of healing themselves, but almost prepared for this, but felt they ought to go through the process of, I suppose we ought to go to the bereavement because this is quite a horrendous, and probably her GP had said, why don't you go through traumatic loss and bereavement? But actually had a very good ending very, very quickly. So the next gentleman that I saw, he was in his, I would say about his 50s, and it was his mother that had died, so she was elderly. And this only again went into about the second or third session. And it turned out that he was actually quite pleased that she'd gone. And that's something he had to be, show courage to say, actually, I'm glad I didn't like her at all, because we did try to find out why. And when his horse died, when he was about 10, he was never allowed to cry or grieve the loss of his horse. Well, that was huge for him. Mm-hmm. Now he had something acceptable to pin his grief onto. His mother had died. And to go in for counselling probably years ago to say, oh, I need counselling because my horse has died. But actually, it wasn't that. It was the lack of attachment, good attachments and support from his mother, which he didn't get. Yeah. So that was another one,
So there's a bit of a theme here coming out, Liz, I think, around whether we do or do not talk about death and your own personal experience. It wasn't spoken about for 43 years, and all you got was a kind of euphemism of Dad's gone to live with Jesus. And I think that's quite common, certainly in Britain, that we don't talk about death.
No.
It's a bit taboo during life, and even after the death, we don't go there.
Yeah, and we have the most perfect role model in the royal family, stiff upper lip. A lot of foreign countries, they have wailing sessions and crying sessions, letting it all out. And to us, couldn't do that. But there's such wisdom in that and getting it out. And another lady, I started practicing then at the GP's practice, and one lady I saw there, I don't know whether you probably have heard of the Cray twins. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was a family member of them, and I'm not disclosing anything I shouldn't be, but listening to her story, it really was a whole lifetime of traumatic events, one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. But she cancelled about 6 appointments before she actually turned up. And it's a very, very funny little version. It actually unstuck her a little bit. And she said, I said, look, you've met me. You said you agree to work with me. And yet there's something that I haven't done to assure you to come along. I said, why don't you just come along and have a cup of coffee? And she said, well, can I bring Bertie? And I said, yes, of course, you bring Bertie. So I said, get a taxi, get here, but 10 minutes, you see. So anyway, I said to the reception staff, who's Bertie? Oh, that's the dog. We don't normally allow dogs in, you see. But see, if she'll turn up with her dog, that's fine. So in she came and brought Bertie, this little Yorkshire Terrier thing. And we got talking, and you know, coffee, one thing leads to another, to another, to another. And she said, you know, I was so angry. I said, all right, okay. I'm not convinced you really, is that how angry looks? And she'd been suppressed, repressed, put down, not to show feelings. I said, show me how angry you were. And she got up and she screamed, I was so effing angry. You know, and the dog peed on the carpet.
Oh, Bertie.
Because poor Bertie, because he'd never heard her express anything like that. And of course, I had a little knock on the door. You okay? I said, yes, fine. So it kind of unstuck her. It was quite amazing, really, to actually voice some of that emotion. Let me see if anyone else that I had there. And I did actually go to, oh, yes, I went to a hospice to work. That was fascinating. And a little apprehensive about going in, because you think about all those souls dying and the family being so upset. But you know, there are the happiest places to go to. It's amazing the support and what they do. And they have a totally different outlook on living and on dying. And they talk about it. This is talking, as you say, Paul, talking and talking. And I went to, this one was run actually by nuns. They were very, very lovely. And when I went in for my first visit, they took me right in to this priest who was actually dying. And that was part of, to see my reaction to it. But it was all around. But, you know, just things like taking someone out for a little walk in the garden. And one lady wanted to go a little further. We went down and bought an ice cream and came back again. The following week, she was missing. I said, I know where she is. She's gone out. She's gone to get an ice cream. And there she was. And they were panicking, you know, these nuns flying around trying to find this patient who was missing. And I knew exactly. She was down at the ice cream phone. I said, sorry, that's me. And the other hospice I went to, I worked for a couple of sessions with the music therapist. He was a marvelous, marvelous therapist. And he was working with his teenage girl, and both during her father's illness to dying to after. And she wasn't actually a musician, but he got her to get her feelings out by drumming and whatever she needed to do. And the healing that took place for that little girl, she was a teenager, was amazing. You know, to actually express it. And children will do in art, in music, painting, anything, dancing, expression, being allowed to express what's actually going on. So that was really all I can tell you about the traumatic loss and bereavement. One thing I will say, years and years later, going back to when my father died, but years and years after that, I had this realization. I tell you, it was Barbra Streisand who was on the television, and she said, strangely enough, that her father died when she was only 7. But what she didn't realize until years later was that she'd lost her mother the same day. And I thought, yes, I know what that feels like. Because my mother was absolutely amazing. You know, we had what we needed and most of what we wanted. So we never went short on material things. But there was that sort of coldness, cut-off point. And when I heard Barbra Streisand say that, I thought, oh my goodness, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Even though she was physically there, you'd lost her. I'd lost her.
Yeah.
So going back to my psychotherapy training, actually, when it finished, I passed my question paper, my questions, but I failed my tape, my oral tape. And I thought, oh, blow this, that rebellious bit in me. I'm not doing that again, because I didn't agree with all that they were talking about. And my tutor for the final year, she said, you must do it. You must do it. I would let you loose on any of my family more than probably anybody else. You must do it. And I thought, okay. And it was like passing a driving test. You drive according to how you should drive to do the test and all this business, you know. So I did it, and I had my piece of paper. But anyway, that was an achievement that I was actually quite proud of, you know, because I thought, I must go back and do that, because I know I can do it. I wasn't prepared to not get qualified because of my rebelliousness. So anyway, what else can I tell you? Clients. Yes, there are losses of different kinds that we came across. And we actually did follow some of the work of Kubler-Ross.
6 stages of grief, or 5 stages of grief, but they've added a 6th one now.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, it applies to, you know, people actually dying and the ones that are bereft. It's the same kind of process. And each stage requires slightly different support. So the denial stage is, you know, what they're saying. No, it's not me, you know, if someone's dying. And if it's anger, why me? Why is it me? All sorts of bargaining goes on. Like, I promise I'll go to church every week if you let me live. Or I promise I'll go and visit my cousin that I don't like very much if you let me live. All sorts of bargaining goes on. And the depression, you know, for people, sad to actually say goodbye. And of course, the acceptance, when it comes along that you're accepting, it's like you surrender to it and find some kind of peace and tranquility. And the 6th one, Paul?
Finding meaning.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's co-author. I've forgotten his name now, but he's written another book recently all about getting that to that peaceful and hopeful place of healing and closure and feeling more love than pain for the person who has died. Yeah, but I think meaning in any type of psychotherapy, once a client gets a meaning, an understanding, that's power. You know, and it's changing the meaning, reframing it, if you like. Because when I think about what my auntie said to me about, no, you've got to be a very brave, strong little girl. People doing NLP will understand or know the presuppositions, that one of them being every behavior carries a positive intention. And of course, her positive intention was to protect me. She didn't know. She did the best she could with the resources she had at the time. And I always tended to struggle with that presupposition when I was doing my NLP. Every behavior carries a positive intention. Oh, I don't know, that sat a bit, you know, when you think of some behaviors. And I think, well, you know, when I'm teaching it, I say, well, it's difficult to get a grip on that one, but it's usually a positive intention for somebody else. It may not be for you. And sometimes we have to dig really deeply to find what that positive intention is. Yeah. And when you find it, it's not condoning the behavior, but it's actually forgiving the behavior, and that's a great healer. So we've got, you know, the forgiving, and, you know, the understanding is so very, very powerful. Yeah, it's compassion, isn't it? And I'm thinking back to when I had Jaffa guesting in the Hive a few weeks ago, and he mentioned that presupposition around every behaviour having a positive intention. And I likened it to non-violent communication. Are you familiar with that? Yeah. So it's a similar kind of concept there, that under every behaviour is a feeling, and underneath that feeling is a need. So there's an unmet need, which is, I think, equivalent to that positive intention, which may not come across in the behaviour as a positive intention, but there's something in there that needs some compassion, needs some attention.
And I think we're so easy reacting instead of responding, just giving it a moment to actually take in and think, well, it's easy to say, but that other person is suffering in some way to be so hurtful.
Indeed.
But something that I do remember I remember some of it from the psychotherapy, and something that used to make me smile, really, I thought that's quite an enlightening statement, is there's something I can't stand about that person. No, what is it? How did you say it? There's something about that person that I can't stand about me. There's something about that person I can't stand about me. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's like, looking back at yourself, and it could be something that you're envious of, that you want to be, or you don't want it. And you recognize it. I mean, to have any recognition of anything, you have had to have had an experience of it.
Yeah. You spot it, you got it.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. I had to put that word in because there's a little private joke going on between me and Jaffa at the moment.
and he is watching. There you are. Look, he's lovely to see you and hear you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Jaffa. Thank you very much for joining us.
And Liz is here as well. Liz Threlfall, good to have you with us, Liz. Thank you. Right, now, the learnings, I did jot down a few things because there's always so much to talk about, and I have to just keep myself on track. The learnings that I had from working with these wonderful people who were suffering and in such terrible places were that platitudes don't work. And I think it's because people, again, looking at the positive intention, they don't know what to say. And people will cross the road to avoid you rather than confront you and say, I'm so sorry to hear that. Anything I can do. But platitudes just don't work. Looking shocked at things, when people are telling you things, oh my goodness, didn't work. Now, empathy is different. But that shock almost closes it back in again. People say time is a great healer. Not on its own. It's what you do in that time that really matters. And for most people, I would say it takes 12 months, sometimes 2 years, to really go through the process, dependent on the situation. But most people, to really process it well, that's on average. All those years ago, I suppose 25 years ago, when I started doing all this stuff. Let's go back to what works a minute. Sorry. So listening works. Feeling someone so they get seen. Being comfortable with silence. So much in that beautiful space, there are gems, nuggets of wisdom in that silence. And of course, breathing. I'm a Qigong instructor, so I wasn't then, but I now with my clients, we go into a lot of breathing. Because, we would say, now just take a deep breath like that. But there's so much wisdom in these old sayings. There's an old saying about keep your chin up. Well, it's true, because if you look up in the air like this and with a cheesy grin on your face, it's really hard to feel depressed. But
all these sayings, they've come from somewhere, a place of wisdom, that we haven't really delved into it. So the breathing is just so incredibly important. It controls the rest of the internal organs that we have no control over, but the breathing does.
Yeah.
So, as I say, 25 years ago, neuroscience was beginning to really investigate how trauma, I won't go too much trauma because I think Rob is doing a talk about that, but the traumatic loss. But I noticed that with all the clients, although I didn't know, and they didn't know much about it then, it made a huge difference as to their family upbringing. If they were supported as a child and allowed to express their feelings, it's a good attachment theory, as you were talking about, you were learning about. That really, really helps. If they, as a child, it was erratic. Yes, it was. No, it wasn't. They couldn't rely on it. But there was no support. The odds are they have no resilience. But if they've got, as a child, you could start building that resilience from a very, very young age. And it's talking about things. It's being honest about things. It's being open about things. And all those things, because then you have a taste of what life is going to throw at you. And every time something happens, you have coping strategies. You know, we have this, you know, area where we feel we can self-soothe. We recognize our emotions. We have an early warning system. So we think, that doesn't feel good. I need to do something. Because they've had support. They've had role models who have included them. Role models who have spoken to them, role models who have hugged them. And it's okay to cry, it's okay to be angry. It's okay. Accept your feelings. So that was really obvious and evident with the people that I saw when they spoke about their families. The ones that could process it much easier had that background of resilience.
Yeah, so it is just really those core messages around speaking openly, authentically, not trying to wrap it up in cotton wool or not speak about it. And going back to what you say works, Liz, it sounds to me like Carl Rogers' core conditions for therapy. Just, you know, being empathetic, listening, allowing the space, being non-judgmental. Yeah.
And, you know, again, as I was saying, people can so easily forget all the good times. You know, they can remember, you know, negative times. So sometimes I would sit with them and say, come on, let's make a list of all the good things that have happened. You know, when I would have loved to have done that. I wouldn't have had a long list because I was only 7, but I could still remember some things. But, you know, as an adult, to go back to, I remember we had such a lovely time. And we went here and we laughed so much, you know, our bellies were aching, we're laughing. And we had that lovely holiday. And that kind of gets erased sometimes. So to actually write it down makes it real, makes it come alive again. So that's a great thing to do. And they're at the where is it? The first psychiatric hospital in London was the Maudsley Hospital, and the doctor, I think it was Henry Maudsley. I think this is now in his diary. I think I wrote this bit down because I can never remember exactly word for word. It was in the Barts Hospital Museum, and it says, "The feeling that cannot find expression in tears cause other organs to weep." That's very poignant, isn't it? Very strong, very powerful message. You know, the feeling that cannot find expression in tears cause other organs to weep. And I think that I found that a lot of people, not just clients, but people, friends I've known in my life, they've had some sort of bodily trauma because they haven't been able to cry. Basically, they've had to hold it all together. So I think that's such a lovely quote. And it teaches us that, you know, if we have something wrong with our body, it's probably something we need to do to work through.
Absolutely.
You know, with Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, with his amazing book that we spoke about, The Body Keeps Score, says it all. It's just amazing stuff there. Yeah. So anyway, let's go on to, I think I have a little bit of a, yes, there was a specific area that you asked, or someone asked, about the challenges during the pandemic. And, you know, when I think about the group that you've got together, which is amazing. I mean, what a wonderful group, what a collaborative of wonderful therapists, you know, out there helping people. And of course, you know, the effect of the pandemic is only really just beginning. It's coming out of the woodwork. And I think there are a lot of people who had mental issues, problems before the pandemic. So, you know, this is like, wham, in again, you know, I mean, there's massive amount of traumatic, you know, people have been traumatic effects on them. So, as I say, it's early days and we're just coming out of that. And I think that now it's almost that we had, when they said lockdown, it was certain. It was lockdown, that's it. And now it's not getting political, but do we do this? Do we do that? Can we do that? Can we do this? You know, it's that, and it's fear. Because believe you me, children, young people are frightened to death. They may not say it. They may look on the surface of being quite blasé and, you know, it's all right, I'll be all right. They're not. They're frightened about their planet and about their health. So you were asking about this, and I actually just recently took on a client who I have known for a little while, and I've got this written down because she told me all about this story. She's given me permission, but of course I won't be using any names. So I'll read some of it out. So she lives with her husband and mother-in-law. The mother-in-law has got dementia, but it's never been officially diagnosed. I don't know why. So she and her husband are full-time carers. Now, the husband's sister died March 2020. And the sister's husband died 18 months before that. And they both died of cancer of the liver. And they were both heavy drinkers and smokers. Now, a client's husband, every day, because his mother had dementia, had to say, your daughter, no, she's died. Every day he had to say that. And he actually became angry at having to keep repeating all the time because he had grief that he needed to see. So he was actually overwhelmed by the situation. And my client said in her words, I feel I'm holding everybody and everything together. And she said, I'm feeling stuck, Liz. I'm just stuck. There's no way out of this. And the cremation was due to take place about 50 miles away. And I think it was about 3 weeks later that it took place. And my client's husband and his two brothers, they couldn't travel together because they all had underlying issues as well. But if he'd gone on his own, he wouldn't be able to come back for 2 weeks into the house again. So what was arranged, that the family that could go, they said that they would do a video link and take it back, send it back to the family, live video link. So they tested, as we do, the link, and it worked perfectly okay at home. But when they got to the crematorium, it didn't work. So that was another blow. So they contacted the crematorium, and they said that, oh, it's okay, this happens. It's a dreadful time, we know, but we've got something in place. We're videoing all the services now, and we'll send you the video. Well, this was May, and they still haven't had the video. So you can imagine that they've got no closure. This is what they're looking for, some sort of closure. So she has been a student of mine in the Qigong classes. And of course, all that had to stop as well. And she said, well, we started about 3 weeks ago out in a playing field. So we're outside. It started with 2 people, then we got 4 people. And that was her only time to get out, just for an hour and a half once a week. And that's the only thing, that's her piece of comfort. And she said it was a haven of calm. So at the moment, we're discussing how to first find some kind of closure, and second, how to extend her haven, if you like. And of course, it's had a massive toll on the family. But she practices meditation. She practices Qigong on a daily basis and she knows there's no quick fix. But she says she feels now unstuck. So that's a great move forward for her. And she feels seen. So that's pretty much, where I am with her. I'm seeing her again. And she's moving. This is the most important. She's moving physically and she's moving mentally. She's working towards finding a closure. And I'm sure she's not the only one. There must be hundreds, if not thousands, of people who've been so badly affected with loss during the pandemic. Another case that I had, actually, nothing to do with the pandemic, was people not being able to attend funerals for closure. When there's family feuds, I had one of my clients was a gay man, and he was banned from attending his partner's funeral. That's tough too. So again, we have to find a way around it. So we always work together about doing a little memoriam, what is special for them. Not what I suggest, but what is special for them. So that's really much about my bereavement experience, both mine and my clients. And of course, this lady who was very kind in allowing me to use this as a case study, but just very recent. It's only been, a week and a half into it, really. So she's needing the support, but she feels unstuck, which is the most important.
Great. Thank you for sharing all that. And I think it's important to state that everyone grieves in their own unique way. And you've given some examples of what helps and how long it may take to, I noticed you said process it. You didn't say get over it, because I don't think we ever actually get over a bereavement of a close loved one. It's just something we learn to adjust to and process and live with, isn't it? Okay, so I have one further question, if I may. Putting you on the spot here a little, but can you characterize how you would say grief is different to depression? I know depression is one of the stages of grief, but for me, grief feels different. Do you have an understanding that you can?
Yes, it is different, and it's different for everybody. If you asked 10 people, what it's like for depression, they would all tell you differently, as 10 people with grief will tell you differently. But I think it's always important to put, I'm feeling depressed. I'm going through the grieving process. If you put an ing on the end of it, it makes it move. Otherwise, it's static. And it also separates you from your identity. So grief, most people find it heartbreaking. Where depression, they don't feel it in their heart. Depression is almost low moods, they're down, they don't get angry, they don't get much, they just get low, low, low. But with grief, it's heartbreaking, I would say, in my opinion.
Thank you. And I'm thinking about what you said earlier, Liz, around not talking about grief and it being quite taboo. And I'm thinking back to the Victorian times in this country where pretty much everyone had a parlour, and the purpose of the parlour was when somebody in the family had died, the body would be kept there, and people would, I don't know, it's 2 weeks or something, they would come and pay their respects and be with the body, and there'd be a big ceremony. And then if it was a man that died, the widow would wear black for a certain period, months, so that everyone knew she was in this grieving process. But we've kind of lost some of these rituals, I suppose they are. Yes. And now, if somebody loses their partner or their mum or their child, they're back to work after a couple of weeks. There's no black outfit. There's no visible sign. There's no ritual really behind it. So I feel that we've actually taken a step backward in that way, that we're not signifying grief, we're not communicating grief in that way. And it's, I think it's one of the few things that the Victorians did that was healthier than what we do today, I feel. Yes,
it has taken a step backwards, and people did, and sometimes the ritual, was not useful because it was a ritual, it was expected, and some people wouldn't want to be wearing black, for 12 months or 2 years. They don't want to wear it, so I think it's finding always that happy medium, what works best for you. The rituals and traditions that work and some that don't. But I think absolutely you're right by saying now that maybe it's too much the other way. Get over it. Yes, of course it's natural. We're born and we die. We know that. And the Dalai Lama talks about the dying process. He says it's always very good to make a plan, and he said, because you never know when it's going to happen. And if you believe in afterlife, well, it's great because you've got a plan. But if you don't believe in afterlife, it doesn't really matter. There's no point in worrying. See? So I think, because it's taboo and people don't talk about it, it's like, that D word, that death, we mustn't talk about death. But of course, it's a natural thing. Who knows what happens after? Always people say about, what happens when you die, but no one actually happens about what happens before you're born. Where were you then? What were you then?
Yeah.
There's many questions. You think, gosh, that's something, a different way to think about it. And I think this is lots of things for me. It's like thinking about things differently, reframing, if you like, call it that, but just thinking differently. A thought that is better for you, that makes you feel better. Because a thought is real, but it's seldom true.
Yeah, so we can challenge those thoughts. We can start to see the cycle of birth, life and death as transitions of a soul transitioning, or whatever works for us.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Afterlife, which got me thinking about the Ricky Gervais kind of comedy drama, Afterlife. Have you seen that at all?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I thought that was really poignant, actually, and actually really healthy to be showing someone in the depths of grieving, and he was very depressed.
Amazing, that series. Yeah.
So highly recommend that, folks, if you haven't seen it. Whether you I think Ricky Gervais is a bit Marmite, you either love him or you hate him, but there's funny moments in that series, but also very touching, and it felt very authentic to me as well.
So, Paul, I need to leave screen now, I'm afraid. Thank you so much for asking me, and I hope, and if anyone's got any questions, then please do. Be very happy to answer them.
Lovely, yeah. So if you've got any questions, folks, you can pop them in the comments, and perhaps Liz will come back to you at a later time.
Yeah.
So, Liz, thank you very much for your time and your expertise, and see you back on the Hive.
Yes, you take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Take care. There we go, folks. I hope that was useful. And yeah, whether you are grieving yourself, or whether you've done some grieving in the past, or whether you're just kind of preparing or learning more for what may happen in the future, then do feel free to leave some comments or questions for Liz, she says she'll come back to you, so I'm sure she will. So in the meantime, what have we got coming up? Tuesday tomorrow, that means it's Man Tuesday. If you're a man, you are very welcome to join us on Zoom at 6 o'clock. There's a link on the Hive, or you can search Man Tuesday Saddleworth on Facebook to get the Zoom details. We just talk openly about whatever's going on for us. And what else can I say? Wednesday. Oh, nothing coming up this Wednesday, but I think the Wednesday after, we've got something new coming. Very exciting. And our next guest in the Hive is going to be this gentleman here. Robert, thank you for being with us today. And Robert is going to be talking about trauma on Thursday. So if you have any questions during the show or beforehand, feel free to submit them. And what else? I'll just do my usual thingy Bob. Share. Oh, yeah, that one. If you'd like to help contribute to make the Hive sustainable, please go to buymeacoffee.com/thrivehive. You can subscribe for £7 a month, or drop me a coffee for £3. So if you can afford it and thought you've just got some benefit from that session, you could pop there now and just send me £3. That would be lovely. Thank you very much. And if you could share the group with your friends, or invite any particular friends who you think would benefit from being here, please do so, and we can grow this community still further. So what's this comment here? Thank you. I think Paul's comments towards the end about everyone's grief being different and personal summed it up for me. Yes, thank you. It is. There's no right way to grieve. There's no wrong way to grieve. We're all individuals, and having done some grieving myself for my dad and various other people I've known who have died, it's a long process sometimes. It's a painful process, but I liked what Liz said about talking about it. It's very healthy to do, and whether that's with a therapist or a volunteer at somewhere like Cruise, it's good to talk. Okay, so I shall leave it there. Take care of yourselves, and hopefully see you on the Hive soon. Bye-bye.